One thing I learned during Black Friday is you don't want to put out something that's like really obvious AI. I think that doesn't really help your brand, and I think a lot of brands are sensitive to that as well. And so I kind of had to find a strategy that wasn't time consuming. Like if I'm spending 8 hours just prompting, trying to get the perfect video, it's a bit of a waste of time for me. So I really found ways to leverage these AI tools quickly and kind of let them flow under the radar of people being like, oh, is this real or is this fake? And so some of the stuff I was doing was
ChatGPT tips so it isn't such a people pleaser. How you talk to your ChatGPT so it gaslights you less. This episode is brought to you by Contentful. Marketers, you know that feeling when your creative clicks, when that social post sends engagement through the roof, when your outside of the box campaign hits ROI positive, when a personalized homepage turns prospects into customers? It's utter marketing bliss. Contentful helps you create tailored omni-channel experiences without working overtime. No stress, no limits, only possibilities. Get the feels at contentful.com. It's all killer, no filler. I'm Eric Dick on the D2C podcast, and we have returning guest Braydon Germain, who is sort of a resident expert with all things AI here on the Pilothouse team. I just feel like there's some absolute insane AI energy happening right now. D2C is we're now SaaS developers. There's all sorts of things happening. What's going on in AI with AI in your world, Braydon?
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of creative stuff that's happening, especially in the age of Andromeda. I think some of these static creation AI tools are getting really good. That's definitely going on. The video stuff is also super interesting and just getting better and better.
Oh my God.
And, amazing to see, I think a lot of these After Effects nerds who just didn't have the raw materials to make cool videos, but now they can just, prompt and get this like raw material and then mix it all together with After Effects. It's pretty inspiring, pretty cool.
To kick things off, let's talk about the Clawbot situation.
Okay, for sure.
I read an interesting tweet, and I want to parse some of the information I've heard. What's your take on the implication of this for our industry, I guess? What is it, first of all?
You can think of it as a autonomous AI that works continuously on a computer. So it's not so much that it's a chat interface or anything like that. You can talk to it through things like Typeform or Slack, and that's how you communicate with it, but it will run on your machine. And so I don't know if a lot of people have heard of this, but there's like Mac Minis are sold out because people are buying these Mac Minis, setting up Malt Bot on their Mac Mini and running it on there. It's an open source platform, and it's pretty crazy. Like effectively people are trying to, make it into an employee. And I've seen some insane tutorials where, answering emails, doing tasks on the computer.
Stock trading.
Yeah, and connecting it to Zapier, and people are trying to figure out how to make it safe. I think that's like the one big thing is if you just give it access to your computer, like it can open up Chrome, it can go into your Google, it can like do anything you want really. So there's a lot of safety concerns, I think, but it's effectively getting closer and closer to driving a computer. And if an AI can drive a computer, it's effectively what a lot of us, as marketers do is we sit on our laptops and we drive our computers. So it's getting close.
Is it powered by Claude, or is Claude underneath it, or is that something else?
Yeah, so it's Clawbot, which is like, I think their logo is like a lobster, and then Claude got kind of miffed about that, and so Clawbot was changed to Malt Bot.
Okay.
And so you can use Anthropic and you can use Claude as its large language model, but you can also connect ChatGPT, you can connect Gemini through APIs. And I think really the ideal is that you would have a open source LLM that's not connected to any of these large ones. So you could effectively put like an LLM on your Mac that just lives it's like servers on the Mac. And so everything is kind of self-contained there.
I was following the social network, the Malt Bot, Clawbot social network drama, and then I saw a really interesting tweet that followed that, because to catch people up was essentially this idea that someone created a social network for these bots, and they started talking and conspiring, and they created a religion called Christafarianism or something like that. But then I saw a tweet just yesterday. I was trying to find it so I could reference it, but it was a guy who was taking credit for having written the Christafarian tweet, posing as a bot, being a human, posing as a bot, and he he said that almost all of the posts that were referenced as like scary things that AIs were doing were actually friends of his that he knew were human, which I thought it was really interesting because all these stories picked up and they told the story of these creepy bots doing these things, but all the examples they used were actually the human insights that were being generated. And so it sort of had me go full circle to be like, oh, good, there still is the power of human creativity is still something that humans recognize and gravitate towards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a scary moment. But if you think about, we all work in DTC and we're all trying to get likes, impressions, and clicks and stuff. And I think like you could go and instruct one of these Clawbots to give the perception that it's coming up with its own language or, that sort of stuff, coming up with religion. But I think most of the time it's probably human driven in order to, get lots of attention on Twitter and X and stuff like that.
You have a note here to jump right into some of the Black Friday AI winners. I know it's a little post Black Friday, but I'm really interested to hear about the way AI was really successfully used. I assume that's for creatives during Black Friday.
Yeah, I think like when AI video and AI images came out, I think we had a lot of clients that were excited about it and just kind of thought, hey, now we can do insane volume, like just go for it. And I think one thing I learned during Black Friday is you don't want to put out something that's like really obvious AI. I think that doesn't really help your brand. And I think a lot of brands are sensitive to that as well. And so I kind of had to find a strategy that wasn't time consuming, because if you're like spending with my job, like if I'm spending 8 hours just prompting, trying to get the perfect video, it's a bit of a waste of time for me. So I really found ways to leverage these AI tools quickly and kind of let them flow under the radar of people being like, oh, is this real or is this fake? And so some of the stuff I was doing was, really involved with Photoshop, using Nano Banana and taking like screenshots of influencers, taking existing content and then kind of repurposing it in like interesting ways. For example, we have a brand that has an eye mask, and one of them was like, let's put her on top of the moon. Let's put her in Everest, like let's on top of Everest. Let's like have one of them of her standing with a sign that says Black Friday, and she's like outside of an airplane window. Just like, it doesn't look AI, but it definitely stops the scroll. And so that was a lot of like the processes that I did. And they were like quick, was able to come up with lots of ideas, maybe create different age of people. So say we were going after like an older persona, we could kind of get that like 50, 60-year-old model that are kind of hard to source in the DTC world. And then the other thing was just trying to think outside of the box. And I think the cool thing with a lot of these video tools is that you can put the first frame and the last frame in. And so then I was able to kind of AI generate very organic looking content using existing content as kind of like the reference. So I'd get those statics and then I'd put them in. So one of them was the product was on like an airplane tray table, and it started there. And then that was the first shot. And then the last shot was like the girl holding the sign up outside the airplane window. And so you kind of had this like POV shot of like the product, and then like it looked out the window and you could see this like girl like holding a sign on the airplane wing. And that one was actually one of the better ones that we did. And it kind of flew under the radar. Probably people were like, is this AI? Does this feel real? So it was kind of making it feel real, but also not wasting a ton of time trying to create that stuff.
Because you can literally do anything. That's the challenge that you find yourself in, whether it's creative or building, new SaaS tools. It almost anything is possible. It's pretty wild. Talk to me about some of these static ad creation AIs that you used and to good effect. Right now, all of our ads for both the agency, like our agency community as well as D2C are all AI statics and we're hitting some really good numbers in terms of our CPAs at this point. What tools are you using in the static world?
I've never really been too thrilled with like how AI tools have worked. Maybe like 6 months ago, I would have said, the stuff isn't there yet. But I've been recently using a tool where you can plug in all of your brand's information on the back end, like their fonts, their logos, all their color palette. You basically create this like brand guidelines for them. And then you chat with it like ChatGPT, and you can access ad library, and you can go and click on, different ad inspirations and say like, I want it to be like this brand's ad, but for this product, you can select different products on your website. And it does an amazing job. Like, I was able to pump out, I timed myself in 2.5 hours. I did 9 static ads, and no issues with the small fonts, of the product, no issues with that sort of thing. It really nailed it. And, to create 9 static ads would have been a lot more time consuming to do the traditional way. So it's coming a long way. The tool's not perfect, but it's definitely on its way.
Now, you mentioned the age of Andromeda. So go one level deeper with those 9 creatives, because in the past you might have created 2 angles and 3 variations for each of those angles. But when you say 9 static creatives, are you talking about like 9 sort of like fleshed
New
out
concepts,
like full concepts, right? Talk a little bit about how you think about concepting.
Yeah, so Andromeda is different. Before we used to be able to do micro iterations where we would say, hey, we've got this winner, let's change the color of the CTA, let's maybe change the product image, let's change the headline. And so we could effectively get more volume from our designers by saying like, hey, I need 5 iterations of this, subtle tweaks, and we could throw that in and maybe one of those would hit and we'd get a little bit better of a CTR, or we would get, a better ROAS. But now in the age of Andromeda and Meta's new AI is going to bucket those if they're too close. So I think like the general rule of thumb is like, unless it's 70% different, it's going to bucket it into one creative. So you could put 5 iterations that look fairly similar and Meta will only see it as one. And so what you really need to be doing is just coming up with these new concepts. And that's time consuming from like a content briefing standpoint, but also from a designer standpoint, and then also from a revision standpoint, because now you've got 5 new concepts that like need the client to give revisions or give feedback on. So it's really forcing, I think, a change in the way that we think about how to deliver creative. And tools like this, I think, are inevitable so that we can get the volume, we can get the contrasting concepts, and then hopefully, like, because we're able to just kind of pump this stuff out, hopefully we can just speed up the process and then give Andromeda what it wants, which is just like a plethora of different ad creative ideas. So the way that I do it is we come up with a strategic overview of what we're really trying to do, like what's the angle, and then from there I will kind of see how many different ways I can expand on that angle with different creative.
I like your point you have next here about ChatGPT tips so it isn't such a people pleaser. Like, I've never felt more gaslit than by my ChatGPT. I just started using Claude and feel like maybe it's a little better, but I'm curious about how you talk to your ChatGPT so it gaslights you less.
You can go into the settings and you can give it custom instructions. And basically what I told it, I said, you are my mentor and I need you to pressure test all my ideas. And I need you to call me out when they're bad ideas and tell me why they're bad ideas so that we can get everything solid and bulletproof. And just by doing that, it takes a different tone. It's not like, of course, Braydon, or like, oh, I see, it's just like hardcore mentor mode. Like, here's where you're going wrong. It's like the first thing it responds with, and then it breaks it down. And I think that's just like a way that I've found to improve its outputs. Just really saying like, you're a mentor, and like my success is based on what level of critical thinking you have. So that's one way that I've done it, and it's been really helpful.
I love that. You are Yoda. I am but a Padawan. The next point you have here is the future of AI, and I'll just use this as an opportunity to talk about our week here on the D2C side, which has just been absolutely wild. I just had a little memory come up of 3 years ago when I was using either ChatGPT or one of the other ones to create some images for this publication we were creating. And it was all creating these really great cinematic images, and sometimes the fingers were messed up. And I was comparing that to like what was happening this week, which was my co-founder on D2C started looking at our onboarding flow, which we're radically changing, started looking at how content works in our newsletter and how we could make our newsletter, more appealing to more people. So he ended up using Claude, creating a hall of 10 avatars who would rate everything on our newsletter and give us all this feedback, which then morphed into him to actually using Claude Cowork and the Claude Code to start building out HTML code for the newsletter, which then led into him building a full content delivery system for the newsletter that allows us to both write real content, generate other content, this whole perfectly tuned SaaS product where he's built logins for us all. And he's not a developer by any stretch. And in 2 days, he's built an entire sort of like newsletter system that could only be built for us with all these feature sets that he doesn't even know he needed. And it's just like, it's insane what is possible with these products.
And yeah, like you said, you just have to have the imagination and be willing to put in the time to kind of uncover what's possible. And these tools are here for it. They are down to help us do whatever we need to do. And that's pretty insane. So he just did that in 2 days.
Yes, in 2 days.
You feel like it's like functioning.
Yeah, we're going to send out Friday's newsletter. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, maybe subscribe on Friday because you might receive the first ever AI HTML'd newsletter from us. But we just were on a 1.5 hour long meeting this morning where we were like fine tuning it and tweaking it. And we're going to send the first one generated this way. And again, all the content is still written by a human for now, but we have it like helping us frame it in a way that's better based on these 10 avatars that we created. We're also going to then we have already created on ChatGPT last week, like a D2C podcast brain. So it's got all of D2C podcasts in it. So we write a newsletter and we're like, hey, come up with examples from the podcast for each of the things that we talk about. And then it pulls from all of the different podcasts we have. So what we got to port that over to Claude. We just had a tech meeting where we're going to port these giant brains over to Claude. And then it's like this comprehensive system of building our newsletter, referencing past newsletters, referencing podcasts. We're going to eventually put in performance data from each of the newsletters or each of the podcasts. So Claude now knows which newsletters are performing better, which content performs better. The only thing that I'm thinking during all this is it's like you can literally do anything now. And I'm like, should I be like the things that people will be using AI to build are going to be absolutely insane. Like we're building a newsletter for D2C founders. Why don't I ask it to figure out a newsletter that would pay me 10 times as much, and figure out how to execute that? Because I probably could at this point.
It is wild. And it just makes me think that like you would never hire an employee to do all that work of indexing the transcripts and reading through the transcripts and searching through that. You couldn't hire an employee to do that. And now I think that's sort of the tasks that are like, it's really excelling at this point is just these, you could never hire enough people to do that. It's just not cost effective. And now you have this like brain that effectively can, really steer an organization or steer at least your life. So yeah, it's awesome.
What a time to be alive. What else were you going to offer about your thoughts on the future of AI?
I think there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. And I think, part of me really thinks we should be optimistic about it. And so I just think I would encourage everybody, as the future comes quicker and quicker, just get your hands on some tools. I've spent some time, on some AI boot camps and just learning the stuff myself just to get, better at the tools. And then if a piece of software comes out with an AI integration, like just making sure that you're using that stuff and seeing ways to leverage it, I think is just important in the future. And I wouldn't be afraid of it. I think I would just embrace it. And I think the future is going to be pretty cool. And obviously, if they create an AI that can drive a computer better than I can, obviously that's going to be a little scary. But I think if you just stay on top of it, you'll just be able to be a controller of AI and just create more value. So
I am a techno optimist generally as well. And I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, seeing what is possible is just so eye-opening. I'm trying to figure out when this podcast will come out, but next week on Monday, we have a podcast from New York & Co., the CMO there, Laura Cantor. And a lot of the podcast is actually about a post she made on LinkedIn that went crazy viral, getting millions and millions of views. And literally it was the post was about how she switched her site from hydrogen to liquid. They went off headless onto like a pretty standard Shopify build for this huge e-commerce site a week before Black Friday. And how she ended up using this tool that's called Zenyt, ZENYT.ai. It kind of does what Jeff kind of built for our newsletter, where it scans your website as a customer or as different kinds of customers would view your website and gives you like 500 suggestions about whether it's like you have a big product catalog and your images don't match up. Maybe you used a lot of AI images and there's some problems there or whatever. But the point of her post was, in this age of AI, it's super important that we also keep connected to our community, because people are constantly solving these problems in different ways that you didn't even know your website has maybe. But this post just resonated and got like 2 million views or something like that, sold dozens or hundreds of these Zenyt subscriptions. But again, every person that hears that could go and fix their website, which again is a job that you couldn't hire a mechanical Turk or 100 mechanical Turks to do. But now it's possible.
Yeah. And so I guess what you're saying is, staying connected to a community and being exposed to all these ideas that are happening around us. Because if you kind of shelter yourself out from being on X and or being a part of these like AI communities, then you really don't know what's around the corner, or you don't know if there's like a solution that actually could help your business that's just like a few clicks, like you're saying, 2 days away to transforming your business.
Embrace the FOMO. There was one other thing you had on here, and we do have a little time, so let's shout it out. What are some? I know we as a shop use Motion.app, or a lot of the team members do. What are some of the new AI features that are moving the needle for that platform?
Yeah, I just think like creative strategy is so important in the age of Andromeda. And some of these new AI features that Motion has been rolling out are so impressive. You know, they've got this AI tagging feature that will, you know, it'll actually look at your ads. It'll read the transcripts. I think it even looks at the video, like it'll snapshot the videos. And so it gets context of what your ads are doing, and it will tag your ads. And then you can go into like different patterns, and you can see like, okay, this is like our intended audiences. This is who we're going after. These are the formats that have been working, you know, and then they have this like chat interface. So then you can go create a motion report that shows you, say, your target audience that you've been working on. Maybe it shows you other audience that have potential but maybe you're not really servicing with ads, and you can click on that, create a report, then you can get the AI to analyze it. Then you can get it to say like, how are we not speaking to these people? What are other ways that we could create ads? It's just phenomenal. It's like, it really has come a long way in 6 months. And I think with Andromeda, with like the speed at which we, you know, are to be creating new concepts and coming up with new angles, I think is a really cool tool. So yeah, just the fact that you can have a conversation, a dialogue back and forth, and it's integrated into your ad account is like so cool.
And I think it's a huge area. I actually just saw a tweet from someone that was heard through the grapevine that Meta is going to be putting a bunch of investment into creative analysis for their platform. And the post was lamenting the fact that creatives are what drive the biggest revenue generator of the biggest ad network in history. And yet there's almost no native creative intelligence built into the Meta platform.
Yeah, there's always like, if you went into Business Ads Manager, you could find like creative insights, and you click on it, and it's like it didn't help very much at all, you know. And it is a huge hole that I'm surprised, like you're saying, I'm surprised they haven't filled. I think it'll be cool, like if they can beat Motion, like, you know, those are big shoes to fill. Motion is really on top of their game. And then I think too in the future, I would say that Meta is probably going to come out with a tool that creates ads as well. Like I mentioned earlier, the static ad creator tool that I've been using, I think Meta will just be able to do that as well on platform in a few years.
Have you done anything agentic? Have you done anything where you're turning something loose to act on your behalf? Because that's everything that I've done is sort of hands-on keys, you know, cutting, pasting into different platforms. For me, a big change will be when I bridge over to, you know, giving something permission to act on my behalf.
Yeah, I've just used the agent mode in ChatGPT, and it's just slow and clunky. You know, it has to explain every move that it does, and it takes a long time. So I've got it to do things like, hey, while I'm working on something, I'll send the agent to be like, go through and find me like 5 really good testimonials off this website. And it'll go through and it'll click through the reviews. I've done stuff like that where I can kind of multitask in that way, or CRO stuff. Like, can you just like look through this page, analyze it, give me some feedback? So that's the sort of way I've used it. But watching Clawbot, watching some people use Malt Bot or Clawbot, it's fast. It like opens up things and things are happening on your screen. It's crazy. It's really, so I think I would be interested to play. Some people are using UTM. It's like an open source piece of software to create like an isolated Mac within your Mac. So you can have your computer, and then you can have like a window that's like its own Mac within your computer. And then they'll give Maltbot access to that Mac. So it's not actually getting access to all of your stuff. It's just this kind of like empty shell of a Mac OS. And that could be interesting, but if I were to do it, I'd be really cautious with security and what I give access to. I think it has infinite memory. It can just it just remembers everything, and then it also just gets better and better and better. And I even saw one where the guy gave it access to his computer, and he woke up and it had done a bunch of work on his piece of software that he was building. That it was like, hey, like I noticed that you were having issues here. Like I just went ahead and made some changes for you. Like if it works, great. If not, so it's like it's doing things behind, and then people are they're instructing it to add in my calendar all the time that you're doing stuff. And so they'll see at like 2 a.m. it's like it did like an hour of work, and like, you know, while you're sleeping, it's just like doing stuff in the background. It's crazy.
Brave new world. Techno optimist, thank you for coming on the podcast again, Braydon. We'll be in touch again soon.
Cool. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilothouse's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.